Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttamaśloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtikim Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. Welcome to the morning Bhagavatam class. Today we are reading from Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 1, which is entitled The First Step in God Realization, text 27 and 28. 2:1:27 and 28. First reading 27. Dve januni sutalam vishwamurter urudvayam vitalam chatalam cha mahitalam tajjaganam mahipate nabhastalam nabhisaro grunanti. Dve januni sutalam vishwamurter urudvayam vitalam chatalam cha mahitalam tajjaganam mahipate nabhastalam nabhisaro grunanti. Translation. The knees of the universal form are the planetary system of the name Sutala, and the two thighs are the Vitala and Atala planetary systems. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. Text 28. Urastalam jyotiranikamasya griva maharvadanam vaijanosya tapovaratim vidurapi pumsa satyam tu sirshani sahasra sirshna. Urasthalam jyotiranikamasya griva maharvadanam vaijanosya tapovaratim viduradipumsa satyam tu sirshani sahasra sirshna. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is the Mahar planets. His mouth is the Janas planets. Sorry. His forehead is the Tapas planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of he who has 1,000 heads. Purport. The effulgent luminary planets like the sun and the moon are situated almost in the mid-place of the universe, and as such, they are to be known as the chest of the original gigantic form of the Lord. And above the luminary planets, called also the heavenly places of the universe, directorate demigods are the heavenly places of the universal directorate demigods are the Mahar, Janas, and Tapas planetary systems. And above all, the Satyaloka planetary system, where the chief directors of the mode of material nature reside, namely Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. This Vishnu is known as Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu, and he acts as the supersoul in every living being. There are innumerable universes floating on the causal ocean, and in each of them, the representation of Virat form of the Lord is there, along with innumerable suns, moons, heavenly demigods, Brahmas, Vishnus, and Shivas, all of them situated in one part of the inconceivable potency of the Lord, as explained, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10.42. So, just to bring in some connection before we, let us start with prayers and then we can read the translation once again. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinatarinam. Hare Krishna. So this section starts. I think it will be very. I know devotees have explained thoroughly in the previous classes what has happened up to now, but I will try to connect them with what has happened earlier. So I'll go a few verses earlier and then start connecting today's verses to the previous ones. I'm not going to read through the purports, but I'll read through the translations. I think this is the verse where Sukadeva Goswami starts speaking. Yeah, Parikshit Maharaj asks a question. Oh Brahmana, please describe in full detail how and where the mind has to be applied and how the conception can be fixed so that the dirty things in a person's mind can be removed. So in the earlier verses, Sukadeva Goswami explains one has to remove all the dirty things. And here Parikshit is asking a question. How that can be done? Where should our mind be applied? So this is a question which is common to all of us as well, that because we don't have any fixed place to apply our mind, it wanders everywhere. If we read the Sthita Pragya section of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there it is very clearly explained. Krishna explains all this very, very beautifully there. He says, Yato Yato Nischalati. No, that is the sixth chapter. There is one verse in the second chapter which speaks about the boat that Indriyanam Hicharatam. The mind is the senses are restless by nature. They want to keep accepting so many inputs in the form of sense enjoyment. And Krishna compares even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses upon, it carries away the man of fixed intelligence. And the example is given of a boat. Boat is kept on a boat is on the waters, on the surface of the waters, and it is not anchored properly. Then even a slight breeze or a wind can actually take away the boat. It sweeps away the boat, right? So as long as the boat is properly anchored to the shore, then the boat will remain fixed. So this process of anchoring our mind to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is being explained here, and that was explained in the Bhagavad Gita also. So if that fixing is not there, then there is no stability for the mind, and mind keeps wandering everywhere in a ride given by the senses. The senses take the mind on a ride, and that ride is very dangerous. Why? Because they are not going on a very ordinary or safe road. They are going on a road which is filled with poisonous serpents, right? So in fact, Prabhupada compares that senses to be poisonous serpents also in the second chapter. And devotee is compared to a snake charmer. right? Just like a snake charmer knows how to control the venomous serpent-like senses, similarly, devotee also knows how to control them. And then he says that a devotee doesn't allow the senses to act independently. And he also gives the example of tortoise. This is just trying to summarize what is spoken in the Sthita Pragya section of the second chapter, because that has some connection here. Krishna also says about, kurma, tortoise. A devotee, an advanced devotee knows very well where to engage his senses and where to withdraw them from, right? So Sukadeva Goswami is giving a similar answer here, but we'll see there are some differences also, because Sukadeva Goswami here is not explaining the ultimate step in God realization. This is basically the first step in God realization, right? And this looks very similar to what Krishna explained in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita as the yoga, Ashtanga yoga process. Sukadeva Goswami answered, one should control the sitting posture, regulate the breathing process by the yogic pranayama, and thus control the mind and senses, and with intelligence apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord called Virat Rupa. So this Virat Rupa is being described in the next verses. So as I said, this is the first step in God realization. So first step means one may not have an understanding of the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what Sukadeva Goswami here is saying that, one can start with what we are able to see around us. It need not be, if it is not possible to meditate on the Supreme Lord. So there are several places, several commentaries have been given by our acharyas explaining that this Virat Rupa is the material manifestation of the Supreme Lord, and it is temporary. It is not like one of the avatars, and the 6 kinds of avatars. This Virat Rupa is not included in those avatars, and it is also a temporary manifestation of the Supreme Lord. Now, can Supreme Lord be manifested temporarily? He is the person who exists eternally, right? So actually, this is an imaginary form of the Supreme Lord. That's what our acharyas say. Then this form, why Sukadeva Goswami is mentioning here, is because a person in the initial stages may not have any conception of God. And that's why Sukadeva Goswami is trying to show how we can actually see the Supreme Lord even in the world around us, even in the universe around us. It need not be, one need not have a very high degree of intelligence. The ordinary things that we see around us, which we take for granted every day, these are all actually like the sun and moon. Of course, they are not ordinary, but what I mean to say is that, we take them for granted. But then Sukadeva Goswami is saying that these are actually different parts or limbs of the personality of God. Looking or seeing at these different material manifestations in that way, that is, we first of all, the first thing is that we stop looking at them as objects of my sense gratification. People can even do that. Even the sun and moon, people can think that they are meant for giving enjoyment to me. And the second is, by looking at these different manifestations in the material creation as the parts of the body of the Virat Rupa, we are indirectly connecting to the Supreme Lord. We are trying to understand, we are trying to focus upon that different limbs of the body of the temporary manifestation of Krishna. So because of which there is some purification. But then if we see this process, one should control the sitting posture. These are all explained by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter. And interestingly, Arjuna rejects this. Arjuna says, no, it is not possible for me to, do like this. One should stop all activity. Here it very clearly says that. Thus control the mind and senses with intelligence, apply the mind to the gross potencies of the Lord. So that's what, this is in one way slightly different from what Krishna has explained, because where Krishna explains, for a yogi is a person who just sits and meditates on the personal feature of the Lord. At least Prabhupada Prabhupada's purports are in that effect, actually. Although Krishna actually says that a yogi should go to the forest, sit in a lonely place, and then fix his mind. And then there is a whole discussion of how to fix the mind, what is the nature of the mind, and all that comes up. In the 24th verse, he continues, Shukadeva Goswami continues, this gigantic manifestation of the phenomenal material world as a whole is the personal body of the absolute truth, wherein the universal resultant past, present, and future of material time is experienced. So this is the body of the absolute truth, he's saying. So this material world is not independent of Supreme Lord. So there are different classes of people. They are called theistic people, atheistic people, and there is something called deistic people. I came to know very recently. These people, like theistic people, are those who control who understand that the Supreme Lord is the creator as well as the maintainer, that is the controller of the universe. That means this world is created and it is still under the control of the Supreme Lord. That means Krishna is directly controlling this manifestation. That's one kind of people. And the second kind of people are atheistic people, whom we all know. They don't accept that God has created the material world. They don't even accept the controllership of the Lord. And the third kind of people are called deistic people, who actually say that Krishna control, or some God control this universe, but some God created this universe, but he is not in control. He cannot control it. Just like the wall clock. The wall clock is manufactured by, let us say, Quartz or Titan, some company, but they don't control it, right? They just, we purchased that particular wall clock and keep it on the wall, and it is happening automatically, right? It is just put in a battery and it starts working. So similarly, these people also say that universe is like that. God controlled it in the beginning, but now he doesn't. God created it in the beginning, and now he doesn't have any control over it. He just gives up all the control. But then we understand that it's not like that. It is actually controlled by the Supreme Lord at every moment. Then comes 25th verse. The gigantic universal form of the personality of Godhead within the body of the universal shell, which is covered by the sevenfold material elements, is the subject for the Virat conception. So this is very clearly explained here. So this is an imaginary form, again, of personality of Godhead. And this is actually covered by the sevenfold material elements, right? So we all know what they are, like Bhumira, Panalo, Vayutham, Mano, Buddhi. Those are the things which are covering this form. Then in the 26th verse, this was yesterday's verse, starts describing what are the different parts of the Virat Rupa. So this is the meditation that Sukadeva Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj. So this is actually a meditation. If we actually read these things, in one by one translation, we also understand, okay, this is the form of the Lord. So as soon as that form is established, that we can quickly focus upon the form. So if we read the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 12.5, it is mentioned very clearly. Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gatir dukkham. Krishna says in that it is very difficult to fix the mind on some formless emptiness. So that's why, and he says that for those who are embodied, it is very difficult to accept the formlessness of the Supreme Lord. So we are all embodied living entities, and Krishna very clearly says that it is kleshodikatarastesham. It is very difficult. It is a path filled with so much of klesha, misery, right? Kleshodikatarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam. One who is trying to meditate upon nothingness, or unmanifested form of the Supreme Lord. Avyakta hi gatir dukkham, says, it gives a lot of misery, actually. So that's why here Sukadeva Goswami is explaining the personal form as it can be experienced by even a neophyte. That's what is the explanation here. Persons who have realized it have studied that the planets known as Patala constitute the bottoms of the feet of the universal Lord, and the heels and the toes are the Rasatala planets. The ankles are the Mahatala planets, and his shanks constitute the Talatala planets. So very great explanation. That comes to today's verse. The knees of the universal form of the personality planetary system of the name Sutala, the two thighs are Vitala and Atala planetary system. The hips are Mahitala, and outer space is the depression of his navel. Please note, this is Mahitala, and the previous one is Mahatala. Mahi is also the name of Earth actually. The chest of the original personality of the gigantic form is the luminary planetary system. His neck is Mahar planets, his mouth is Jana planets, and his forehead is the Tapa planetary system. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of he who has 1,000 heads. So very poetically said. Satyam tu Sirshnani Sahasra Sirshna. Satyam tu Sirshani Sahasra Sirshna. The topmost planetary system, known as Satyaloka, is the head of he who has 1,000 heads. So Sahasra Sirsha Purusha. So that is one of the in the Purusha Sutta prayers. So this Sahasra Sirsha is the 1,000-headed form of the Supreme Lord. Now, Prabhupada, of course, gives a beautiful purport. So I will stop sharing the screen here so I can see everyone. There is not much we are going to read from there now, but we'll try to understand how is this entire description of the universal form. So this is the Earth is the middle planetary system, and then we have on the top we have Atala. Sorry, we have Bhur, Bhuvar, Swar, Maha, Jana, Tapo, Satyalokas. Bhur, Bhuvar, Swar, Maha, Jana, Tapo, Satyalokas. So Swar is the Swargaloka, and below the Earth are Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala. These are the 7 planetary systems below. So one can understand this this whole structure. We might have seen this picture many places in our ISKCON temples. We see that there is one Vishnu in each universe. Each universe is filled up to half by the Garbhodaka ocean. In that ocean, Lord Vishnu, who is called Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, is lying, and from his navel comes the gigantic lotus, right? And on all these planetary systems which we have just mentioned, these are all actually arranged one after the other along the stem of the lotus. And on the top of the lotus is Satyaloka, which is the topmost planetary system. And in the Satyaloka, Lord Brahma is sitting. And above Brahma is the milk ocean, that is the Kshira Sagar, above Brahma, where Lord Vishnu is again manifested in the form of Kshirodaka Sai Vishnu. So it is said in the scriptures, Vishnostu Trini Rupani, I don't remember the second line. It says, Ekastvam Mahatas Srushtir, Dvitiyam tu Andasamstitam, Trutiyam Sarva Bhutastam, Tani Gnatva Pramuchati. It is said, Ekastvam Mahatas Srushtir, which means that the first Vishnu, there are 3 forms of Vishnu. And the first Vishnu is called Mahatas Srushtir. He is called the Mahavishnu. He is called the Karanodakshai Vishnu. So the Karana, the causal ocean, which is there, the cause of this Vishnu manifesting is nothing but a living entity's desire to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. So that is like an ocean. In that ocean, Lord Vishnu is lying. He is called Mahavishnu. And Mahavishnu is such a huge, gigantic form, and he is one person for the entire material creation. He is only one Vishnu. In fact, the whole material creation emanates from him. As we know, through the skin pores of the Karanodakshai Vishnu, the whole material creation comes out. So each universe comes out through one of the skin pores of the Lord, and again, when he inhales, all of them gets back into his body. So his breathe is compared to the Omkara. So Omkara is the creation. So it is creation, maintenance, and destruction, all three of them. That's why Omkara is also mentioned as the impersonal representation of the Supreme Lord. So through this Omkara, all the universes manifest. And now we are focusing on one of the universes. One of the, it is called Brahmanda. Brahmanda means it's a gigantic egg-shaped universe. That's what it is. In one of the Brahmandas, there are these 14 planetary systems. In each of the Brahmanda, there are various planetary systems. And Vishnu again enters into each of these Brahmandas, because if Vishnu doesn't enter, it is as good as a dead body. Just like we have this body and the soul, if the soul leaves the body, then this body becomes a dead body, right? Similarly, Vishnu is the soul of the universe. So if that soul is missing, then that is dead matter only. So Vishnu actually enters into this each universe, and that person is called Dvitiyam tu Anda Samstitam. He just enters into each Brahmanda, which is filled by his own perspiration up to half. That is called Garbhodaka. That is called the Garbhodaka ocean. And in that ocean, Lord Vishnu is lying. And he is called Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. And Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, when he is lying in his Yoga Nidra, there is a lotus which comes out of the navel of the Supreme Lord. And this lotus goes up to the top of the universe, the stem of the lotus, and then there is a flower on top of the universe. And all these different planetary systems are arranged along the, along the stem of the lotus. And on the top is Brahma sitting, and above Brahma, because Brahma is in darkness, he was born in darkness. He was born from father only. There is no mother. And when Brahma is born, he just tries to come down to the, holding the lotus stem. He comes down to the lotus stem, and there he finds nothing. And then he goes to the top, from top of the universe to bottom of the universe. That's what he, half of actually, because Vishnu is lying at half of the universe, half level. So from there, Brahma actually goes to the top, and he is bewildered. And in fact, he cries, and Lord Vishnu manifests in the form of a sound, and he mentions to the Brahma to do tapa. Tapa, these are the two letters which were spoken. And when Brahma starts his tapasya, then Lord actually gives the knowledge of self-realization, knowledge of how to create this universe, etc., into the heart of Brahma. And that is what we read in the first sloka of Srimad Bhagavatam. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yat Suraya. So the knowledge is given to Adikavi, that is the initial, first created living entity, Brahma. And so by the time Brahma was born, all this universe has already been created. It is something like Brahma came into this universe like a tenant. Just like by the time I came here to the US, already this building is created and it is there ready. I just went and leased out the building, and I'm living here, right? So similarly, this universe is also already created before even Brahma was born. And then Brahma comes into existence and he becomes bewildered, and Krishna guides him. And that is what is explained in the first chapter, first shloka of the first canto, right? So after Brahma actually starts creating, he starts populating this universe. So we can consider this whole universe as slices of an apple which are cut horizontally, right? 14 slices. So different slices have different these slices and separated. That's how the whole universe looks like. So we are staying in the middle planetary system. So whenever we say a planetary system, so this doesn't mean that there is only one planet. There are millions of planets in each planetary system, and those are 14 such planetary systems. So it is like that. And here in this verse 28 that we have seen, it is explained that the sun and the moon, they are the chest of the Supreme Lord. They are in the higher planetary systems, right? So so basically, according to the modern science, we understand that the earth is revolving around the sun, right? So although it appears like, it is truth, it is a fact that sun is going around the sun, around earth is going around the sun. We can also understand that they may exist in different planetary systems altogether, right? So from our reference point, universe appears in a particular way, and in Brahma's reference point, it is a different appearance, and in Krishna's reference point or Vishnu's reference point, it is a different way of looking at it, right? So these are all from different reference points. That's the only difference, and that's why we see that sometimes people who do not have faith in God, they start criticizing, saying that, hey, these scriptures and all, they don't teach anything correct. So according to our calculation, it is like this. According to scriptural calculation, it is something different. It is totally off. Like, for example, Krishna actually, there are many things which a modern man with his so-called scientific temper cannot comprehend from the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why? Because Bhagavatam is meant for those who are non-envious. That is explained in the second shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, second shloka, right? Nirmat Saranam Satam. So when a person tries to intellectually approach the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is very difficult it cannot be understood actually. Sorry. So Bhagavatam actually describes the whole universe from different perspectives, and one of the perspective is from Lord Vishnu's perspective. When Vishnu is, just like in geometry, we have different reference points, right? Like we try to measure the distance of a point from one reference point, then it is a particular distance in a particular direction. But if you go to another reference point, from there you measure it, then the whole thing changes, right? The person who is at this point says that no, the distance from us is so much, but the other person says no, it is not right, the distance is something else, right? So similarly, when we look at different reference points, then we have different angle of visions, right? So Prabhupada wanted to actually have this Vedic cosmological model presented in the, I think there is some sunlight, move slightly here. So from the Vedic cosmological point, Prabhupada wanted his disciples to create the temple of Vedic planetarium, so which is being built at Mayapur, which is going to show the entire structure of the one Brahmanda. So that means the 14 planetary systems can be seen as it is shown in Srimad Bhagavatam, or as it is given from the vision of Shukadeva Goswami. So now there are many things which make us kind of bewildered. Like the modern science says that sun is a star, and moon is a natural satellite of Earth, something like that, right? But then Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, 10th chapter, that Nakshatranam Aham Shashi, he says, which means, Prabhupada writes in the purport also that, moon is also one of the stars, and sun is a different nature. So there are many things like this. His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj has written a book called Surya Siddhanta. And this Surya Siddhanta explains very, very, even today, it is a very authentic source of astronomy. He gives, Surya Siddhanta is a mathematical treatise, actually. It gives how to calculate distances between different celestial objects. That's what we call as Earth, Moon, Sun, etc. And it gives very precisely, very, very precisely, with all the mathematical formulae. I know a few of my friends who are also researchers in India. They are trying to decode this Surya Siddhanta, and it takes a long time. For them, they have been trying to do a lot of research and trying to understand. They are trying to bring it up in the form of a mathematical equations or something like that. So it is accessible to common man. But then they say, like, just to decode one or two shlokas, it takes more than a year. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj did all that within, when he was very young. So in the Surya Siddhanta actually gives all those calculations on how these planetary systems are placed, how these planets are revolving, rotating around each other, what is the time taken for each revolution, etc. So for this universe, as we are describing here, the single particular universal system where we have the 14 planetary systems. So Brahma is sitting on the top. Now this we have explained about the Garbhodaka Vishnu and the Kshirodaka Vishnu, who is sitting on the top above Brahma. He is actually same as Paramatma, and this Paramatma is also present in every part of the universe, in every atom of the universe, and he is also in the heart of every living entity. So we have learned about three Vishnus, Vishnu's Trini Rupani. That's what we learned as on the causal ocean of the material creation. Then we have Garbhodaka Vishnu, who enters into each of the universal Brahmanda, and then he starts creating the lotus. And on the top of the lotus is Brahma. In between, all the universal systems are there, the planetary systems are there. And above Brahma, again, the Supreme Lord manifests as Kshirodaka Vishnu. So whenever there is a trouble in the universe, Lord Brahma goes to the shores of the milk ocean, and then he starts reciting the Purusha Sukta prayers, right? And he cannot actually see the Supreme Lord, face to face. From my dear Lord, please see that there is so much disturbance in the universe. This Hiranyaksha is creating disturbance. And Kshirodaka Vishnu says, okay, I will appear soon as Varaha. And then Brahma hears that and he translates it to the demigods, and they become satisfied. And then they go back and wait for the Supreme Lord or follow the instructions, like in case of Rama Avatar. Lord Ramchandra, and my personal associates, the Shankha Chakra, all these, they come as my family members, my brothers. And then I ask all the demigods to take birth in Vanara dynasties, right? So they take the instruction and then they appear as Vanaras. And in fact, we see that they are all much elder to Ramchandra, many of them. Like, for example, we see Jambavan, who has, he was there from the beginning of the creation. He's not a Vanara, of course, but there are other Vanaras like Sugriva, like Hanuman. They all appear before the Supreme Lord, and then wait for the Supreme Lord. This is how they follow the instructions of the Supreme Lord. So Brahma approaches. Brahma is Kshirodak Sai Vishnu is the counselor of Brahma, actually. He, whenever there is a problem, just like we go to our counselors or mentors, so Brahma also approaches Kshirodak Sai Vishnu. And what happens after Brahma finishes his 8 hours job schedule, right? So he also works in the daytime, and then he takes rest in the night time. So Brahma has a very long day and very long night. So in the Surya Siddhanta, there is some explanation of how not only in Surya Siddhanta, I think we also hear about at many other places, right? One day for us, like 6 months for us is like half day for the demigods, and the remaining 6 months is the night for the demigods, and that is how it is divided as our Uttarayan and Dakshinayan. Dakshinayan is like the day for the demigods, and Dakshinayan, when the sun goes to the southern side, or the earth tilts, its southern hemisphere towards the sun, that is like the night of the demigods. And it is also explained that the demigods are in the Uttara direction, the northern direction. They are in the upper direction, actually. So we can go into so many details, but what happens when Brahma does his daily job, daily service to the Supreme Lord of creation? In the evening, he takes rest. At that time, there is a partial pralaya, where the Garbhodaka water comes up to the Mahaloka. Up to Mahaloka, the water fills it up. Like Jana, Tapa, and Satyalokas remain even after Brahma sleeps. And that's why all these great sages, they all start traveling upwards, and then they live in the Jana, Tapa, and Satyalokas. And up to the Mahaloka, there is a partial devastation. That means they are all filled with the Garbhodaka waters. And these 11 planetary systems which are destroyed or partially devastated, they all, the water starts going down, the level starts decreasing as the day of Brahma approaches. And at the day of Brahma, so we can see from here also that, above the Satyaloka, above the Swargaloka, there is no need of the luminary objects like the sun and the moon. These are there up to Swargaloka. Above that, they are all self-effulgent beings. They don't need any sun and moon to illuminate. And that's why we see that, sun and moon, they are also counted as demigods who live in Swargaloka. And up to, from there they illuminate. And this is compared to the chest of the, Supreme Lord, as it is shown in the verse 28, that the chest of the Supreme Lord has the sun and the moon. And above that, there are Jana Tapo Satyalokas. Head of the Virat Rupa is the Satyaloka. And below planetary systems, they do not have sunlight. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala. They do not have sunlight. And that's why they have some, they have light produced from the valuable gems and other such things, but they don't have sunlight. And that's why, there is one thing which comes to my mind. When Prabhupada went to London, the reporter asked Prabhupada, how do you find London? Prabhupada said, London is like hell. And the interviewer was shocked by this statement. And Prabhupada gave an explanation. He said that, here you don't see sun so much, right? So in the hellish planets, there is no sunrise. Sun doesn't appear there. So sunlight doesn't go there. And that's why they just, use all the valuable jewels and all to reflect, some light from somewhere, probably from the sun only. But they don't see the sun directly. And that's the reason they are all hellish or darker planetary systems. There is no sunlight. So half of the universe, there is no sunlight. The half of the universe, there is sunlight. The first 3 planetary systems, and above that, they are self-effulgent beings. Above first 4 planets, actually, 3 or 4 planetary systems. So they are, the sun and moon are in the chest of the Lord. Like this, it is very easy to meditate upon the universal form which is visible to us and connecting it to the personality of Godhead, right? This, as I said, Virat Rupa is a temporary imaginary manifestation of the Lord, but still that can help us understand that there is some supreme being beyond this universe who is controlling this universe. And that understanding is very important for a person who wants to have God realization. As atheists start from here only. Atheists say that there is no one who created this universe. Everything came by chance, right? When everything comes by chance, my thought process also is a product of chance, right? Then I don't have to trust it. Then why should I believe in atheism at all? This is one of the arguments a theist gives in refutation to the atheism. So they say everything is a product of chance. Somehow the molecules came together, and somehow there is life, and somehow everything is happening like the way it is happening now. But then a devotee understands that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere. He is not only the creator, he is also the controller of the entire universe. And he controls it through various energies. And one of his energies is the imaginary Virat form that we are explaining right now. That is also the energy of the Supreme Lord, right? So I know it is a little difficult or hard to remain. These sections of Srimad Bhagavatam specifically are not like those which produce so much of rasa in the heart, because those which are like Prahalad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, all these, when we read those stories, they give goosebumps. Many devotees have this experience that, when we discuss about the Virat form or the universal manifestation that is explained in the later cantos also, they somehow want to complete it, complete reading, so they can go to other pastimes, actually. But then this is also part of Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sukadeva Goswami is speaking it, and he is dedicating some time to explain this to Parikshit Maharaj, because it has some connection with the Supreme Lord. So this sambandha, this connection with the Supreme Lord, is what we are trying to understand through these verses. So we have a relationship with the Lord through various agencies and various ways. So one of the ways is that we are dealing with the material nature. We are in the material nature, and this material nature itself is a potency of the Supreme Lord. By understanding that, we develop a relationship with the Lord himself directly, right? So that's the conclusion what I wanted to give. I know many devotees are going to explain much more beautifully in the upcoming verses, and many devotees have already explained beautifully in the previous verses of this section. So I'm waiting to hear from all the devotees. So I will stop here. It is 8:19 now. Anyone has any comments, questions, or any thoughts? If I have spoken something wrong, please feel free to correct me. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. Prabhuji, wonderful class. You actually explained, the entire, how the cosmic universe is and how creation happens. There were 2 points which drew my attention. One, when you said, the Karnodakashayi Vishnu, he lays down in the causal ocean because, the living entity, like the souls have desires to fulfill. That is the only reason. And I think that is something I was struggling with all these days, and you clarified that. So if you look at the ocean that he is lying down in, it's the desire ocean. In other words, it's not only unlimited, but it also holds unlimited number of universes with unlimited number of souls like me who desire, which is endless. So thank you, Prabhuji. That was such a, a realization or a light bulb going in my head.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Yeah. The other one was when you mentioned, you brought up the point of nakshatras, grahas, and all those things.
Yeah.
I was recently reading about that, and then what I learned was, again from Surya Siddhanta, that graha, we talk about 9 grahas, and graha means something which wants to grasp, and there are 9 grahas which want to grasp or want to influence the earth, and that includes the sun. So when people say, oh, we call sun planet, the reason is we can't translate it into a better word in English.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's why Prabhupada used the word planet for sun, and he didn't mean much else other than that the sun wants to influence the earth. And then the word nakshatra itself, Prabhuji, what I learned was nakshatra, one that doesn't have a field of activity. So all the nakshatras, we don't call sun the nakshatra for the reason that it has a field of action in which we are. Whereas the other stars that we see, we call them nakshatra because they don't have an field of action that affects us. So I was like, Sanskrit as well as our shastras and our, predecessors, ancestors, they knew so much and they try to put it all in our scriptures. Like you said, if we tend to go towards atheists, but actually there's a lot of, knowledge in our scriptures. Thank you for all that explanations, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for bringing up that nakshatra point. Yes, that is. I think I read that some days ago, some years ago also. That's very relevant, Prabhu. Like when we go to any temples in the Vedic times, even now, like let us say if you go to Aurora temple, Balaji temple, there is this Navagraha place, which is very common in all the in the olden days. Every temple has that, right? And there we see that sun is in the center and all the planets are around. So it's a well-known fact in the Vedic field that these are the planets which are influencing Earth, right?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And the sun and the moon are the primary influencers of Earth. So that's why they're counted among the first ones.
Yes.
And even our weekdays are named after the grahas that influence us in that particular order. If so thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Any other comment or
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu?
I was wondering about one thing.
Prabhu, please.
That Virat Roop is his feet and all that, right? Rasatal, Talatal, and all that. I was thinking, and then you also gave that analogy of apple into slices.
Yeah.
So, which form of Vishnu is it? Is it, Virat Roop is like Garbhodakshayi Vishnu or Karnodakshayi Vishnu? Karnodakshayi definitely not. But,
Yeah. No, it actually. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for that question. Did I hear you completely, or you wanted to say something? I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah. Yes, Prabhu. So basically, if we see Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, and Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, they are like Krishna on a job, right? So just like a policeman has a job to protect citizens, then he wears his coat, takes his gun, all his equipment, and he goes in a vehicle, right? So when he's at home, he is not in that dress, right? He's just like any of us. Like he also plays with his children. He also has his exchanges with his family members. So Krishna in the spiritual world is like that. And when Krishna takes the job of creation, then he comes as these three Vishnu forms. And these three Vishnu forms are spiritual in nature. Spiritual in nature means the same personality of Godhead. He takes just like a policeman, as I said, takes his dress and other things. So Krishna takes Shankha, Chakra, Gada, Padma, and he comes. The two of them, like Shankha and Padma, are for Paritranaya Sadhuna, and Chakra and Gada are for Vinashaya Dushkrita. And then he actually comes on the purpose of creating, maintaining, and taking care of the universe, so that living entities get a facility to enjoy the material nature, right? Because that's what they wanted to do. That's the facility created by the Supreme Lord. And Vishnu takes three of these forms: Mahavishnu, Garbhodaka, and Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. Krishna takes these three forms for the maintenance of this universe. And the Virat Rupa, as I said, is an imaginary form. It is not a spiritual form. It's a material form. So that's why it is not counted in one of the avatars. So this is an imaginary form. Looking at the structure of the universe, we can correlate the universe to different bodily features of Virata form, right? And Shukadeva Goswami says, because this manifestation is coming from Vishnu, this can be treated as Vishnu also. And in fact, there is no place where Vishnu does not exist, right? So that's why this form is different from the three Vishnu forms, and it is just an imaginary form, actually. Even in that form, Vishnu can exist, actually. But then he doesn't have any place, like Virat Rupa doesn't have a separate spiritual planet or something like that. Or he doesn't have any place in the spiritual world. This is just an manifestation that is there in the material world, Prabhu. Is that clear, Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for such nice class, Prabhu. I had a question about like the Virat Rupa explanation in Bhagavatam in second canto and Virat Rupa explanation in Bhagavad Gita. Like, how do we connect these two? Because here Shukdev Goswami is talking about the planets, like the Krishna's feet are different planet and this planet. And in Bhagavad Gita, over there, Krishna is talking about, like Arjuna is telling that I can see mountains, I can see so many suns. So how do we connect these two, Prabhu?
It's a good question, Mataji. I was also trying to find an answer for this, but my understanding is this, Mataji. I have to hear or read something more on this. I was trying to meditate on or contemplate on the same question, that how these two are together. There, Krishna actually shows his Vishwarupa Darshan in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is still a kind of personal form, right? Which is still a kind of personal form, because Krishna still exists as a person there. And then he shows how the universe is actually working under his direction. And Arjuna also says that he is seeing the past, present, and future. What does it mean? That means that the time is actually controlled by the Supreme Lord. And that is what Arjuna is experiencing. Standing in front of Krishna's Virat Rupa, he's able to experience that, okay, this personality is actually controlling everything. So that is the Vishwarupa Darshan, which is shown in the, and also Arjuna mentions that this form is ghastly. I am not able to look at this form, because the material nature, although very beautiful, like we see very beautiful plains, very beautiful plains in the sense like, very beautiful oceans and very beautiful mountains and the hillsides and the countrysides and all these things. But then when the material nature shows its ugly form in the form of, earthquakes, tornadoes, these are also manifestations of Krishna's energy only, right? And those are very ghastly actually. And Arjuna actually sees that the skulls of the Kauravas are breaking under the jaws of Krishna's mouth actually, right? So those are all very ghastly for Arjuna. He was unable to tolerate that. There still the personal feature of Krishna is revealed to Arjuna in the Virat Rupa Darshan, which is shown in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And that was shown temporarily, and then on request of Arjuna, it was withdrawn, right? So, but actually, Krishna exists in the material universe through the Virat Rupa. Like it is a constant existence. It is a permanent existence as long as the material world is there. So that Virat Rupa is the form of the Lord which is sustaining this universe, as it is explained by Shukadeva Goswami here. Right. So this is the connection which I see, Mataji. A devotee is not interested in looking at the Virat Rupa. Prabhupada mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita. That's because that has both beautiful side and the ghastly side also. Right. And Krishna is acting in this universe something very similar to that. Like, he has both the manifestations. Both energies are working. Like birth and death and disease and old age. These are the ghastly side of material existence also, although we may say that we have some happy moments in life, right? But they are very, very little, but both of them are orchestrated by the Supreme Lord only, right? So this is the little bit of connection which I see, Mataji. I know there is much more to this, but I haven't definitely read thoroughly on this, Mataji. Maybe from that perspective, I'm not qualified to speak on this, but this is my understanding.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. You explained really well. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So I see some chat messages also. Thank you, Devamurti Mataji. Thank you, Megha Mataji. So it is 8:30 now. We can, I think, close the talk here. So I thank each and every one of you once again for being here to encourage me. I take leave with this. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्री शुकदेव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः।